What happens when a billionaire tech mogul thinks he can humiliate a cleaning lady because of her accent? Well, let me tell you about Marcus Wellington III and the day his arrogance cost him everything. This isn't just another story about karma. It's about how one woman's quiet strength brought down an empire built on prejudice and cruelty. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Marcus Wellington III stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office on the 47th floor of Wellington Tower in downtown Chicago, surveying his domain like a modern-day emperor. At 45 years old, he had built WelTech Industries into a $12 billion artificial intelligence and software conglomerate, making him one of the youngest billionaires in America. But Marcus hadn't just built a company. He had constructed an entire persona around intellectual superiority and cultural elitism that would make even the most privileged aristocrats uncomfortable. The Wellington name carried weight in Chicago's elite circles. His grandfather had been a steel magnate, his father a prominent banker, and Marcus had taken the family legacy into the digital age with ruthless efficiency. WelTech's headquarters occupied 3 full floors of the gleaming skyscraper that bore his family name, and every detail of the space screamed wealth and power, from the imported Italian marble floors to the custom-designed smart glass that could shift from transparent to opaque at voice command. But it wasn't just Marcus's wealth that defined him. It was his profound belief that success was directly tied to breeding, education, and what he called cultural sophistication. He had attended Phillips Exeter Academy, graduated summa cum laude from Harvard with degrees in both computer science and business, and spent a year at Oxford studying philosophy. These credentials weren't just achievements to Marcus. They were weapons he wielded to establish his superiority over anyone he deemed beneath his station. Marcus had a particular disdain for what he considered, quote, linguistic inadequacy. He spoke fluent French, German, and Italian, languages he had learned not out of passion or necessity, but as symbols of his refined education. To Marcus, anyone who spoke English with an accent, particularly those from Latin American countries, represented everything he believed was wrong with modern America. He saw accented English as a sign of inferior intelligence, lack of education, and cultural inadequacy. This morning, like every morning, Marcus arrived at his office at precisely 7:30 a.m., expecting his domain to be pristine and ready for another day of empire building. His assistant, Jennifer Hayes, had already prepared his schedule: 3 board meetings, a conference call with investors in Tokyo, and a presentation to potential government contractors about WelTech's latest AI surveillance software. The cleaning staff was supposed to be invisible to Marcus, finished with their work and gone before he arrived. But today, something was different. As he walked through the executive suite toward his private office, he heard the soft sound of someone working in the conference room. Marcus frowned, his jaw tightening with irritation. He had made it explicitly clear to the building management company that the cleaning crew was to be finished and out of the executive floors before 7 a.m. Pushing open the heavy glass doors to the conference room, Marcus discovered a woman in her early 50s methodically cleaning the massive mahogany table that could seat 24 people. She wore the standard gray uniform of premium building services, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, and she worked with the kind of careful attention to detail that spoke of professional pride. She was speaking quietly to herself in Spanish as she polished the table's surface, her voice carrying the melodic cadence that Marcus had been conditioned to associate with uneducated immigrants. The woman was Elena Rodriguez, though Marcus had never bothered to learn her name in the 3 years she had been cleaning his offices. Elena had been working for premium building services for over a decade, taking pride in her work and supporting her family through honest labor. She was running late this morning because her youngest daughter had been sick, but she was determined to complete her assigned tasks with the same meticulous care she brought to every job. "Excuse me," Marcus said sharply, his voice cutting through the quiet morning air like a blade. "What exactly are you doing here?" Elena looked up, startled by the sudden interruption. Her dark eyes met Marcus's cold blue stare, and she immediately recognized him as the building's owner, the man whose portrait hung in the lobby and whose name was emblazoned on the building's facade. She had seen him before, of course, but they had never directly interacted. The executive floors were usually empty when she worked, which was exactly how both the cleaning company and Marcus preferred it. Buenos dias, señor, Elena said respectfully, her accented English careful and polite. I am sorry, Mr. Wellington, I am running a little behind this morning. My daughter, she was sick, and I had to take her to the doctor first. I will be finished very soon, I promise. Marcus's expression shifted from irritation to something much darker, a combination of disgust and cruel amusement that anyone who knew him would recognize as dangerous. He had found an opportunity to assert his dominance, to remind someone of their place in his carefully ordered world, and he wasn't about to let it pass. Your daughter was sick? Marcus repeated, his voice dripping with mock concern. And you thought that gave you permission to disrupt my schedule and contaminate my workspace with your presence? Elena's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, but she maintained her composure. No, senor, I did not mean to disrupt anything. I will finish quickly and leave. I am very sorry for the inconvenience. Marcus circled the conference table slowly like a predator stalking prey, his expensive Italian leather shoes clicking against the marble floor. He was wearing a $3,000 Tom Ford suit, and his platinum Rolex caught the morning light streaming through the windows. Everything about his appearance was designed to project power and sophistication, and he used these symbols like armor in his daily battles to establish dominance over anyone he encountered. You know what I find fascinating, Marcus said, his voice taking on the tone of someone delivering a lecture to a particularly slow student. It's the way people like you operate. You come to this country, you take jobs that should go to American citizens, and then you have the audacity to inconvenience the people who actually create value in this economy. Elena continued polishing the table, trying to focus on her work while Marcus continued his verbal assault. She had encountered this kind of treatment before, not often, but enough times to recognize the pattern. Some wealthy people seemed to derive pleasure from humiliating those they perceived as beneath them, and Elena had learned that the best strategy was usually to remain quiet, finish her work, and leave as quickly as possible. But Marcus was just getting started. He had identified what he saw as a perfect target. Someone who couldn't fight back. Someone whose job depended on remaining silent in the face of abuse. Someone whose accented English marked her as an outsider in his carefully constructed world of privilege and power. Tell me, Marcus continued, moving closer to where Elena was working. How long have you been in this country, and please speak slowly and clearly. I know English can be challenging when it's not your native language. The condescension in his voice was unmistakable, and Elena's hands paused for just a moment in their polishing motion. She looked up at Marcus, her dark eyes flashing with something that might have been anger, but when she spoke, her voice remained steady and respectful. I have been in America for 15 years, Mr. Wellington, she said carefully. I came here legally, with my husband and our children, to build a better life for our family. Marcus laughed, a sound completely devoid of warmth or humor. 15 years, and you still sound like you just stepped off the boat from... Where exactly? Mexico? El Salvador? Guatemala? They all sound the same to me. I am from Colombia, señor, Elena replied quietly, continuing her work even as Marcus's insults grew more pointed and personal. Ah, Colombia, Marcus said with exaggerated interest. The drug capital of South America. How fascinating. And now you're here, in my building, cleaning up after your betters. There's a certain poetic justice to that, don't you think? Elena's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. She had heard variations of these same insults countless times over the years. From customers who assumed she couldn't understand English, from supervisors who treated her like she was invisible, from people who seemed to believe that speaking with an accent automatically made someone less intelligent or less worthy of basic human dignity. Marcus noticed her silence and interpreted it as validation of his superiority. In his mind, Elena's inability to match his verbal sophistication proved everything he believed about cultural and intellectual hierarchies. He was a Harvard-educated billionaire conducting a masterclass in dominance, and she was just another uneducated immigrant who knew her place in the social order. What Marcus didn't know, what his arrogance and prejudice prevented him from seeing, was that Elena Rodriguez was far more than she appeared to be. But that revelation would come later, in ways that would shake the very foundations of everything Marcus believed about intelligence, worth, and the true meaning of success. For now, Marcus was content to continue his morning entertainment, completely unaware that he was about to encounter someone who would expose the hollow nature of his supposed superiority and bring his carefully constructed empire crashing down around him. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Marcus Wellington III was thoroughly enjoying himself now. The morning's unexpected encounter had provided him with exactly the kind of entertainment he craved, an opportunity to demonstrate his intellectual and cultural superiority over someone who couldn't fight back. In his twisted worldview, this wasn't bullying, it was education. He was teaching Elena Rodriguez about the natural order of things, about where people like her belonged in American society. "You know what I find most amusing about people from your background," Marcus continued, adjusting his silk tie as he leaned against the conference room's mahogany credenza. "It's this delusional belief that hard work somehow makes you equal to people who were born with actual advantages. You spend your life scrubbing floors and cleaning toilets, and you probably tell yourself that you're living the American dream." Elena kept her focus on her cleaning supplies, methodically organizing them in her cart while Marcus's words washed over her like poison. She had learned long ago that engaging with people like Marcus only made things worse. The best strategy was to finish her work quickly and escape before the situation escalated further. But Marcus wasn't finished. He pulled out his smartphone, the latest iPhone Pro Max in titanium, worth more than Elena made in 3 months, and began recording. "This is fascinating," he said, speaking to his phone's camera while keeping Elena in frame. "I'm documenting a perfect example of why America's immigration policies need serious reform. Here we have someone who's been in this country for 15 years and still can't speak proper English." "Please, Mr. Wellington," Elena said quietly, not looking up from her cart. "I just want to finish my work and leave. I don't want any trouble." "Trouble?" Marcus laughed, still recording. "Oh, my dear woman, you're not in trouble. You're getting an education. See, this is what happens when we lower our standards and allow people to succeed without actually assimilating into American culture. You come here, you refuse to learn the language properly, and then you expect the rest of us to accommodate your limitations." Marcus moved closer, his phone camera capturing Elena's obvious discomfort. "Tell me, what do you say to your children at home? Do you speak to them in Spanish? Are you raising another generation of Americans who can't communicate effectively in their own country?" This question hit Elena like a physical blow. Her children were her pride and joy, and the suggestion that she was somehow failing them by maintaining their cultural heritage while also raising them to be successful Americans was particularly cruel. Her eldest daughter, Sophia, was a pre-med student at Northwestern University. Her son, Miguel, was studying engineering at the University of Illinois. Her youngest, Carmen, was an honor roll student at Lincoln Park High School, with dreams of becoming a lawyer. "My children speak perfect English," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They are good students, good Americans." "Perfect English?" Marcus scoffed. "I seriously doubt that. Children learn what they hear at home, and if you're their primary influence." He let the implication hang in the air like a toxic cloud. Marcus was warming to his theme now, pacing around the conference room like a prosecutor delivering a closing argument. "This is exactly what's wrong with this country. We've become so politically correct, so afraid of hurting people's feelings, that we've forgotten the importance of standards. Excellence requires excellence, not participation trophies for showing up and speaking broken English." He gestured dramatically toward Elena with his free hand while continuing to record with the other. "Look at this woman. She's been here for 15 years, and she still sounds like she's ordering at a taco truck. How can we expect people like this to contribute meaningfully to our economy, to our culture, to our society?" Elena's hands trembled slightly as she finished organizing her cleaning supplies. Every instinct told her to leave immediately, but she still had work to complete in Marcus's private office. The cleaning contract was specific about which areas needed daily attention, and Elena took pride in fulfilling her obligations completely, even under the most difficult circumstances. "I need to clean your office now, Mr. Wellington," she said, pushing her cart toward the door. "It will only take a few minutes." "Oh, by all means," Marcus said with exaggerated courtesy, following her with his camera still recording. "Let's document the full experience. I'm sure my followers on social media will find this absolutely fascinating." Marcus had over 200,000 followers on LinkedIn, where he regularly posted about business success and leadership principles. His Twitter account, with its 150,000 followers, was a platform for his thoughts on American competitiveness and economic policy. He was already imagining how this video would play with his audience, successful entrepreneurs and business leaders who shared his views about merit-based success and cultural standards. As they entered Marcus's private office, a sprawling space with custom furniture, original artwork, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, Marcus positioned himself to capture the contrast between his world of luxury and Elena's humble role as a cleaner. "This office represents the pinnacle of American success," Marcus narrated to his camera. "Everything you see here was earned through intelligence, education, and strategic thinking. The artwork alone is worth more than most people make in a lifetime. And now we have someone who can barely speak the language, attempting to clean the space." Elena began dusting Marcus's massive desk, carefully moving around his computer setup, awards, and family photos. She worked with the same methodical precision she brought to every task, but Marcus's constant commentary and the presence of the camera made everything more difficult. "Tell me," Marcus said, moving closer with his phone, "what do you think when you clean an office like this? Do you ever wonder what it would be like to actually earn a place in a room like this through merit rather than menial labor?" Elena paused in her dusting, and for a moment something flickered across her face, an expression that Marcus was too arrogant to recognize as dangerous. "I think about my work, Mr. Wellington. I think about doing a good job and supporting my family." "Supporting your family," Marcus repeated mockingly. "On a cleaning lady's salary. That must be challenging. How much does Premium Building Services pay you? Minimum wage? Slightly above minimum wage? It can't be much." "It is honest work," Elena replied simply, continuing to dust around Marcus's computer monitor. "Honest work," Marcus laughed. "I suppose that's one way to rationalize failure. You know what honest work really is? Building something meaningful, creating value, innovating. Solving complex problems that require real intelligence and education. What you're doing isn't honest work, it's just work. The kind of work that anyone can do." Marcus moved to his executive chair, settling into the leather seat that cost more than Elena's monthly rent. "Do you want to know what real success looks like? This company generates over $12 billion in revenue annually. We employ over 50,000 people worldwide. We create artificial intelligence systems that are revolutionizing entire industries. That's meaningful work. That's what happens when someone actually applies themselves and uses their intellect." He gestured around his office with obvious pride. "Every piece of furniture in this room was custom-made by artisans who understand quality. The artwork was selected by experts who understand culture and aesthetics. The technology represents the cutting edge of human innovation. This is what's possible when someone commits to excellence rather than settling for mediocrity." Elena finished dusting the desk and moved to the bookshelves that lined one wall of Marcus's office. The shelves contained hundreds of volumes. Business books, philosophy texts, biographies of great leaders, and several books that Marcus had written about entrepreneurship and success. Many of them were in multiple languages, reflecting Marcus's belief in the importance of cultural sophistication. "Those books represent decades of learning and intellectual development," Marcus continued, still recording. "Philosophy, history, economics, technology, leadership theory, subjects that require real intellectual capacity to understand and apply. I don't suppose you've read many books lately, have you?" Elena's hand paused on one of the book spines, and, again, that flicker of something dangerous crossed her features. But she simply continued her work without responding. "Cat got your tongue," Marcus pressed. "Or are you just overwhelmed by being surrounded by actual intellectual achievement? I understand if this environment is intimidating for someone with your background." What Marcus didn't notice, in his arrogant certainty about Elena's limitations, was that her eyes had been scanning the titles on his bookshelves with obvious recognition and familiarity. He was too busy performing for his camera and congratulating himself on his cleverness to observe that Elena was reading not just the English titles but also the French, German, and Italian volumes with obvious comprehension. He also failed to notice that when Elena cleaned around his computer, her eyes had briefly scanned the multiple monitors displaying code, financial reports, and strategic documents, with the kind of quick understanding that comes from genuine expertise rather than casual observation. Marcus Wellington III was so convinced of his own superiority and Elena's inferiority that he was blind to the evidence that his assumptions might be dangerously wrong. He was about to learn that his capacity for cruelty far exceeded his capacity for perception, and that underestimating someone based on their accent and occupation was a mistake that would cost him more than he could possibly imagine. Marcus was still recording when Elena finished cleaning his bookshelves and moved to empty the wastebaskets around his office. He had been narrating her every movement for his social media audience, building what he thought would be a viral video about real American standards and the immigration problem. But as Elena approached the wastebasket near his computer desk, something caught her attention that made her freeze. Among the discarded papers was a printout of an email exchange between Marcus and a government contractor. Elena's eyes scanned the document quickly, and her expression shifted from resigned tolerance to sharp concern. Without thinking, she picked up the paper and began reading more carefully. "Excuse me," Marcus said sharply, stopping his recording. "What do you think you're doing? That's confidential business information." Elena looked up from the document, and for the first time since their encounter began, Marcus saw something in her eyes that made him uncomfortable. Not fear or embarrassment, but a cold, calculating intelligence that seemed completely at odds with his assumptions about her capabilities. "Mr. Wellington," Elena said slowly, her accented English suddenly seeming less pronounced. "This email discusses selling facial recognition software to ICE for targeting undocumented immigrants in workplace raids. The software specifically profiles people based on, quote, linguistic patterns and cultural markers. Is this really your business?" Marcus snatched the paper from her hands, his face flushing with anger. "How dare you read my private correspondence? You're a cleaning lady, not a business analyst. You have no right to—" "I have every right to be concerned," Elena interrupted, her voice gaining strength and clarity. "Because according to this document, your AI system is designed to identify people like me, people with accents, people who look Hispanic, for deportation targeting. You're literally profiting from persecution." The change in Elena's demeanor was so dramatic that Marcus actually took a step backward. Gone was the submissive cleaning lady who had been tolerating his abuse. In her place stood a woman who spoke with authority and obvious understanding of complex technical and legal concepts. Who are you?" Marcus stammered, his usual confidence beginning to crack. Elena straightened to her full height, and suddenly the gray cleaning uniform seemed less like a symbol of servitude and more like a disguise that was no longer necessary. "My name is Dr. Elena Rodriguez," she said clearly. "I hold a Ph.D. in computer science from MIT, a master's degree in international law from Georgetown, and I'm currently a senior researcher at the University of Chicago's AI Ethics Institute." Marcus's phone slipped from his nerveless fingers, clattering to the marble floor. "That's impossible. You're a cleaning lady. You work for Premium Building Services." "I work for Premium Building Services one morning a week," Elena corrected. "It's owned by my brother-in-law, and I help out when they're short-staffed. My real job is investigating the ethical implications of AI systems in immigration enforcement. I've been researching your company for 6 months, Mr. Wellington, trying to understand how WelTech's facial recognition software is being used to target vulnerable communities." The color drained from Marcus's face as the implications of what Elena was saying began to sink in. "You've been investigating me? Not just you, your entire operation." Elena walked to Marcus's computer setup, her movements now confident and purposeful. "Your software doesn't just identify faces, Mr. Wellington. It analyzes speech patterns, cultural behaviors, and demographic indicators to create profiles of people who might be undocumented immigrants. You've essentially created a digital racial profiling system and sold it to the government for $300 million. Marcus watched in horror as Elena navigated his computer system with obvious familiarity. "You can't just— that's private property, you're trespassing. I'll call security." "Please do," Elena said calmly, pulling out her own phone. "Because I've already called the FBI's Cybercrime Division, the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, and the House Oversight Committee. They're all very interested in your company's practices." She held up her phone, showing Marcus a recorded video call. "That's Congressman David Martinez, no relation, despite the name, chairman of the House Technology Oversight Subcommittee. I've been briefing him on your AI system for the past hour. He's particularly interested in the fact that your software has led to the wrongful detention of over 200 American citizens who happen to have accents or Hispanic surnames." Marcus collapsed into his executive chair, his mind reeling. "This can't be happening. You're a cleaning lady. You can't possibly understand the technical complexities of... I wrote my doctoral dissertation on algorithmic bias in facial recognition systems, Elena interrupted. I've published 43 peer-reviewed papers on AI ethics. I've testified before Congress twice about the dangers of using artificial intelligence for immigration enforcement. And I've been tracking your software's deployment for months, documenting every civil rights violation it's enabled. She moved to Marcus's wall of awards and accolades, examining them with the eye of someone who understood their significance. Impressive collection. Harvard Business School Alumni Achievement Award. Tech Entrepreneur of the Year. Forbes 40 Under 40. All very prestigious. I wonder how those organizations will feel when they learn that their honoree has been enabling systematic racial profiling. Marcus's breathing was becoming rapid and shallow. His empire, built on the foundation of his supposed intellectual superiority, was crumbling before his eyes. What do you want, money? I can pay you to stay quiet about this. Elena turned to face him, and her expression was one of profound disappointment rather than anger. Mr. Wellington, you've spent the last 30 minutes explaining to me why people like me don't belong in America. You've mocked my accent, insulted my intelligence, and recorded me without consent while making racist assumptions about my capabilities. And now you think you can buy my silence? She walked to the window overlooking downtown Chicago, the morning sun casting long shadows across the city below. Do you see that building across the street? The one with the University of Chicago banner? That's where I work when I'm not helping my family's cleaning business. My office is on the 32nd floor, and I have a view almost identical to yours. Marcus followed her gaze, his world continuing to shift and crumble. I don't understand. If you're really a professor, why are you cleaning offices? Because my family needed help this morning, Elena said simply. Because when someone you love needs support, you show up. Because honest work, any honest work, has dignity, regardless of what people like you think about it. She turned back to Marcus, and her expression was almost pitying. You assume that because I speak with an accent and work as a cleaner, I must be uneducated and inferior. You never considered that I might choose to maintain my cultural identity while also achieving success in American academia. You never imagined that someone could be brilliant and accomplished while still honoring their roots. Elena picked up Marcus's fallen phone and held it out to him. Your video is still recording, by the way. You've captured everything. Your racist comments, your attempts to humiliate me, your admission that you're profiting from persecution. I'm sure your social media followers will find it very enlightening. Marcus reached for the phone with trembling hands, but Elena pulled it back. Actually, I think I'll keep this recording. It will make excellent evidence for the congressional hearing next week. Oh, didn't I mention? WelTech Technologies is being called to testify about your AI system's civil rights violations. I'll be the star witness. The billionaire who had awakened that morning feeling like a king now sat in his executive chair looking like a man facing execution. This will destroy everything I've built, he whispered. No, Mr. Wellington, Elena said quietly. Your choices destroyed everything you built. Your arrogance, your prejudice, your willingness to profit from other people's suffering. Those things destroyed your empire. I'm just the messenger. She gathered her cleaning supplies and pushed her cart toward the door. Your software has been suspended by federal order as of an hour ago. The Justice Department is freezing your government contracts pending investigation. And the video you just recorded of yourself making racist statements about a university professor? That's going to be Exhibit A in the civil rights lawsuit that 17 families are filing against you tomorrow. As Elena reached the door, she paused and looked back at Marcus one final time. For what it's worth, Mr. Wellington, I hope you learned something from this experience. Real strength doesn't come from putting others down. Real intelligence doesn't require making others feel small. And real success isn't measured by how many people you can humiliate, but by how many people you can lift up. With that, Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked out of Marcus Wellington III's office, leaving behind a broken man whose empire of arrogance had just collapsed under the weight of his own cruelty and stupidity. The cleaning lady had indeed destroyed his reputation forever, not through malice or revenge, but simply by being exactly who she had always been, brilliant, accomplished, and far more powerful than he had ever imagined possible. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.